Welcome to the Elevate podcast, brought to you by the Registered Master Builders. We talk to experts, advocates, and business owners in the construction industry to share their knowledge, insights, and experiences to help you build a better business and enjoy a better life. Now let the business building begin.
What if building healthier homes could also save you tens of thousands of dollars per development and give you a genuine edge over your competition? Today on the Elevate Master Builders podcast, I sit down with Andrew Eagles, CEO of the New Zealand Green Building Council, to unpack exactly that. We're talking lower interest development finance, green mortgages your buyers can access, and a certification pathway that's simpler and cheaper than most builders expect. Andrew shares real numbers from real developments, including one builder who thought the changes required to meet Homestar compliance would cost them $38,000 per home. The actual number? Under $2,400. If you're building new homes in New Zealand right now, this episode is essential listening. Let's dive in. Andrew Eagles from the New Zealand Green Building Council, welcome along to the Elevate Master Builders podcast. So great to have you on the show today.
Oh, Ryan, it's great to be speaking with you. I really look forward to the discussion.
Indeed, and I'm looking forward to an education because I think a lot of the work that you've done, I have some understanding of it, but I'm really keen to dive deep and understand it both from a economic impact, from what we can do around financing, impact to homeowners, impact to the people living in the homes. I'm really keen to unpack a lot of that. But before we kind of dive into maybe some of that detail, Andrew, can you give us a bit of your background? How have you ended up in this position?
So I'm a good Taranaki lad. I then studied down in Dunedin, economics and English. I then worked in Wellington for a while before travelling the world and settling for 13 years in the UK. I worked as chief executive in a number of organisations, growing businesses, and then I was asked to come back to New Zealand for the New Zealand Green Building Council. And what really excites me here is that we can deliver healthier places, better air quality for our people, our families, but also we can improve energy resilience for the country. So some big picture stuff for Aotearoa New Zealand as well. So it's a really special role I'm in, and we've got 700 members across the construction sector, all keen to drive change.
Okay. And tell us a bit about their membership base. Are they all construction companies or are they other organisations involved in the space?
Yep. So it's quite diverse. So bear with me. We've got local authorities, research entities. We've got the supply chain. So everyone from Bunnings, Mitre 10, Fletcher, Fletcher's, all their different subsidiaries, that type of thing, concrete, steel, window providers, and they're all interested to decarbonise their products. Engineers, architects, property owners. We work a lot with the large listed property entities, so Goodman, Argosy, Stride, supermarkets. They're registering to our green standard, Green Star, and then Colliers, CBRE, Bailey's are all quite engaged. And then finally, as you say, Lees, LT McGuinness, Hawkins, all those guys who are in the construction industry. And so it's quite broad across finance, local authorities, engineers, architects, and also the actual construction industry, engineers, QSs. We have lots of QSs involved as well. Yep.
Okay, so it's a really broad range of members that you have. When maybe members are thinking about joining, what's attractive to them? And I'm curious around, are they driven by the opportunity to save the planet one house at a time? So very kind of global greenhouse gases, maybe that kind of end of it? Or are you seeing much more of the desire around truly creating warmer, drier, healthier homes that are better for our people to live in? Or is it some combination of the two?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. I think one of the biggest areas is people can see that we're moving to electrify everything, and they can see that green mortgages and green finance is taking off. So they want information so that they can have a competitive advantage. That's the first thing. They want to know what's this all about and what's happening so they can get access to all of that. And then, so many members come on board for that so they can participate, they can learn, they can understand what are these lower interest finance options? How would I rate a building? How do I get sustainable materials? How do I evidence this stuff? How do I design better? There's quite a lot of interest in health and well-being. So there's an awareness that even with new build homes, we're still getting moisture and damp issues. So people, they don't want to have those issues in their homes. They want to get good air quality and they want to ensure that they're doing really well. So it's partly future focused. Some people join because they want other business contacts, I'll be honest.
Sure.
And then others join because they want to actually be a leader and be rating their buildings.
Yeah. Okay. And you've mentioned green finance and green mortgages. Can you give us an overview of what that means and how do we go about accessing them and kind of where's the value for both developers and homeowners?
So I'll start right at the beginning and just give so that you understand where this is coming from. So about 10 years ago, the global financial institutions said they need to drive finance towards a lower carbon outcome. So they started something globally called the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. And that was basically saying, if you've got large financial assets, you need to be greening those. And banks globally have signed up to green their assets. And what that means is that banks now have $1 billion targets to have more lending associated with green targets. And they're really driven by this. So, ANZ, ASB, BNZ all have targets of billions of dollars. And a good proportion of that is their house lending. So then they've been thinking with us about how they could deliver on that. And they've come out with lower interest development finance. So let's say, Ryan, you're building in a location, 5 homes, you can gain lower interest development finance for that period of time that you need that finance before you recoup it from selling the homes. And then ANZ, they have a lower interest mortgage offer. And what they're looking to do is steer the market towards those lower carbon, healthier homes, and in particular, health and well-being. And so in order to verify that, they've looked for a Homestar rating. And that's the certificate that developers and builders can now get. We've got 16,000 homes taking that up, and it verifies good air quality, less waste to landfill, less moisture in the home, and lower energy bills. And therefore lower carbon emissions.
And what's the process for a developer if they go, hey, this sounds great, Andrew, how do I start the process of becoming Homestar certified? What's involved?
Yep. So they'll tell their design team, and that's a really crucial part. Get that information to your designer really early, because we often get people who have either built or they're most of the way through the process and they just don't have the evidence. So once your architectural designer or your architect knows that, then they'll check off the things they need to be achieving. So they'll check off that the home isn't going to overheat, that the home has decent ventilation, that the home's reasonably thermally efficient. That's not too challenging. And then they just need to verify that. So they need to show the evidence, send that through, and somebody checks that off. And if you're starting out, you do that at the design stage. But once you're really experienced, you only need to evidence that at the built stage, so after the home's actually built. Okay. And then that's checked and a certificate is provided to verify it. Yep.
Okay. And is there a physical inspection required for the property?
Yes, there is. Yep. So at the design stage, it's just written desktop, but at the built stage, the one thing I would say is in the last year, we've moved to streamline and speed this all up. So let's say you're building 60 homes. It may be that just a sample of those is needed, so one of each typology, and then the evidence can be provided. So we've smoothed that pathway, especially for people building at volume. But we've now got people doing hundreds of homes, and they're going to do an inspection anyway. Yes. So they just add on those elements that are required by Homestar. So it's just an additional number of questions as opposed to a whole new process.
Yeah. Okay. And how does the timing work? So I'm the developer. I would love one of those lower interest options, one of the green finance options. How does the kind of order of the process work so that I can get what I need from Homestar and then connect with my lender to help access that?
That's a great question. Yeah, so we worked with a number of the banks. They now accept a letter of confirmation that you've registered the project. So let's say you're building 40 homes in, where do you develop mainly, Auckland or Queenstown?
Auckland, yeah, sure.
Let's say you're just on the fringes. You confirm with them. They just seek a certificate that you've registered. So you will register those homes with us. That costs between $200 and $400 per home. And then we've got a certificate, we've got a letter saying that's confirmed, that's in the process. And then the bank will seek confirmation through those stages that that's been achieved, and that's provided to them as you finalise that process, so that they get certainty throughout the process. And then some people have needed that lending for 4 or 5 years even, and we've had examples of people saving $40,000 per house as a result of that lower interest development finance, which has been quite helpful for them. And then for them, they had an $8,000 to $10,000 cost per home to move to the Homestar standard. So their total benefit upside was over $30,000 per home.
Right. And when you reference that $8,000, is that money that they would be spending with Homestar for all the certification process?
No. So that's things like that person might not have had a ventilation system which met the Homestar standard, or they might have been slightly overheating through the model, and so the model said you could put some shading up, or those are extra capital costs for each home. The certification cost to the Green Building Council is usually $200 to maybe $450 or $500 per home if you've just got a small number of homes, but that's usually the cost for actual certification fees to the Green Building Council. And the others are just the capital costs for delivering a healthier, efficient home.
And if we go to the consumer side, the people actually buying houses that are certified, I'm curious, what are you hearing from your members? Are they able to use this as a differentiator in market of how they can promote their house or their property over others? Are you starting to see, I guess we'd call it pull demand, where you've got consumers now in market going, I'm looking for a house that's Homestar certified? What's available? What are you observing and what are you hearing from the members?
So we are seeing some home builders actually market in their showrooms that their homes are Homestar. We've got some really keen members who have Homestar on their websites setting that out. And then we've just started having some developers who have the lower interest ANZ mortgage offer inside their showrooms as well.
Nice.
So that developer has 260 homes registered with us, and they've committed to each of their show homes. They show they're working with Homestar, and then they have the pamphlet for the lower interest ANZ offer. We have just started a large marketing campaign, just setting out that, ask for better, ask for Homestar. What's been great is some developers have got in touch with us and said, this is great to see. We're really supportive of that, and that they have been training their people up so they can deliver when they get asked. Okay. I think there's more we can do. And so we're at the same time, we're showcasing examples of developers around the country building to those standards. So a great development in Auckland, the M project by Ockham is Homestar rated, and I'll be going there to do a showcase video and highlight that as well.
I have so many questions. This is really interesting, Andrew. I'm curious, the New Zealand Green Building Council, are you member funded or do you get government funding as well to support the cause?
So we're member funded, and then we also, about 40% of our income is from membership. Another 30% is from when we sell our tools like Homestar or Greenstar. We also have a tool we run on behalf of central government called Neighbours. Government, they don't support that with a huge amount of support. We just sell it on their behalf.
Right.
And so our background has been in commercial buildings. So if you look in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch now, you build an office building downtown, you'll certify to Green Star. And so the construction firms, the real estate agents and everyone, they had a really big knowledge of that. And then what grew out of that is people wanted the same, but for residential as well. So hence Homestar evolved.
Right. Okay. So just to clarify, Homestar is the residential program that you offer, and then Green Star is the commercial.
Exactly.
Right. And I understand there's like a 10-point scale that you can rate. Let's talk about Homestar, rate homes across. Is that right? And it's kind of like a 10-point scale. One being this is a very poor design that doesn't really help our environment or the people living in the home much at all. Right through to 10 is as good as it gets. What rating out of 10 do I need to get to for it to be Homestar certified?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so I need to make a bit of an apology here because I came on board in 2016, and the Homestar scale of, as you say, 1 to 10 was created. And the philosophy was we'll get people rating their existing homes and they'll score between 1 and 4, say, and then you'll get lots of people rating their new build homes and they'll be 4, 5, and if they're hitting the Homestar standard, they'll hit 6 and above. When I came on, there wasn't much traction with the existing home market because it was too complex an assessment. So we scaled that down and we just focused on the new build market, and that's been successful. 16,000 homes and counting. To come to your question, at many existing homes will score 1, 2, 3 stars, right? Because in New Zealand, we didn't build with good ventilation. We had mold build-up. We had many years without decent insulation standards. Now, new build homes, we've had an improvement to the insulation standards about 2 years ago, the H1 standard. So that's really good. And it means that really now the big areas of interest are comfort. So we're seeing new build homes overheat sometimes in the summer, particularly townhouses and apartments.
Yeah.
Ventilation, we're not getting moisture out of the home effectively, and that means that we can get mold. We'll see mold build up around windows, but also in the loft cavity, and that can actually, we're seeing some clients we're working with having to go back and remediate because they're getting mold build up within the first year, and those are some of the core issues, the differences. But the really positive thing is getting those things right isn't that difficult. So get some good ventilation in, and just when you're designing up, if you consider how big if you put that into a model, say your architectural designer or your architect puts it into model, the model will say the home's going to overheat for February and March. You're going to have 32 degrees late into the night. And those things are relatively easy to fix and low cost. So I would say a lot of people just building to the building code would be scoring at 4 or 5 stars. And with some of those minor improvements, we usually see people are able to improve at between $2,000 and $10,000 and hit that Homestar standard. And then they can access the lower interest development finance and the lower interest mortgages. Infometrics did some research, and so 6 star is now the minimum for new build homes. And Infometrics found that often the upfront costs are paid off within 3 years through lower interest running costs and lower interest mortgage rate. And then you can save between $62,000 and $99,000 through the course of your mortgage through having a Homestar home and accessing that ANZ offer. We would urge other banks to provide lower interest mortgage rate as well, because now we've got developers that are actively marketing that and successfully. Just last week, we were updated that one developer helped secure ANZ two more of those mortgages. So yeah, I'm sorry it took so long. 6 to 10 star, 10's world leading. Really importantly, we would just say to most, because we get people come in and they're quite gung-ho and they say, I want to be 9 star. And we say, let's just slow down. Let's just sort the overheating out, get some good ventilation, you can hit 6-star, you'll be happy, it's not complex, let's get you on the pathway.
And is the aspiration for our country and our building as we get more effective at doing this, can you see a time when most of the new houses being built are in that 8 or 9 star range? Or what's your thoughts there?
Yes, so if you look at the history of building codes in other countries, what tends to happen is you get so the building code is changed, and then the mess that becomes the bottom, and then there's some leaders who are at the front, and they push, and then gradually products improve, knowledge improves, and that's happening now. And indeed, it happened in New Zealand with insulation, and then the building code goes boop, and it steps up. I've got no doubt that within the next 3-4 years, we'll see a move to require the things that are required in Homestar, and the building code will change, and then we'll move on to other things. But when you look at our energy crisis that we're facing, and when you look at the number of concerns the minister's getting about overheating, so he did actually commit, the Minister of Building and Construction at our housing summit, to reduce the overheating risk in new build homes. He said, I know that's an issue that's affecting thousands of New Zealand families, and I want to rectify it. So if you want to be ready for what's coming in the building code, and you want to access better interest rates and to see where the future is, you can start doing this and investigating this now, right? Just have a play, model your home, check how you do against Homestar. Maybe you've got a 20 home development coming up. Just take 10 or 5 and say, I'm going to see if I can achieve this. And it starts to get you ready. And it also means you can compete with your other people who are doing that. And you can say, we're backed by an independent, not-for-profit and healthy and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be so many positives around it from everyone across the board. The ability to hand on heart say, we're building better, healthier homes. They're going to be more enjoyable to live in. They're going to be better for the planet. And by the way, I can save money on both the developer and the consumer side on the way through. Doesn't sound like there's a lot of downsides here to me. It sounds like a win-win-win all around. So nice work, Andrew, and bringing this to market. And no doubt influencing the likes of ANZ to bring these kind of offers to market, and I'm sure the rest of the market will follow. But great job in getting that moving in that direction. That's great.
Oh, thanks so much, Ryan. Well, there's a lot of people that are really passionate about it. The most important thing for us is that we are delivering in a way that's helpful to builders and developers. So it's so special to be having this with master builders, because it's only when builders and developers say, we want to take it forward and it works for us and it's smooth and it's easy. And that's really key. And all I'd say is, at any point, talk to us, right? If you want to talk to the banks about the lower interest development finance, we've got the contacts. If you want to try it out and something's niggling you or is a nuisance or not as fast as you'd like, talk to us and we can get that. We've got 16,000 homes. We're gearing up. We're seeing people sell homes as a result, so we're really happy to help. And we do also recognise that it's a change. So, you've got a developer, and they do actually have to change how they're designing slightly, but usually that's not massively onerous. And in some instances, there's a saving, because if you're building a townhouse or an apartment at the moment, often the issue is over-glazing. So we're going floor-to-ceiling glazing, and what that does is, with the wrong orientation, you're going to get so much sunlight and heat in that the house can't dissipate that heat build-up. But windows are more expensive than walls. So If you slightly scale down the window, you can have a house that's more comfortable, and B, actually make some savings in that area. So there can be some upsides.
And Andrew, I'm curious, when you talk about if that is in the design, you're like, you can probably add some ventilation that is not wildly expensive to help with the dissipation of the heat. What does that actually look like? Is it, some kind of fan system in the ceiling cavity? Tell me what that ventilation might look like.
Well, so we just looked at one the other day. Actually, it was a continuous ventilation system. It's very, very, very quiet, very, very effective. I mean, you can move on to mechanical ventilation and heat recovery. That's what people at 8, 9, and 10 of Homestar achieve, and that's where the air leaving transfers the warm heat, the heat to the air that's coming in, and that's a more complex version. But in many instances, it's just stepping up the type of ventilation system you might have to have one that's continuous, really, really efficient, and which is getting that moisture out of the kitchen and in particular the bathroom. So we had one the other day. This developer had said, his team had said it was going to cost $38,000 per home to achieve Homestar. So we assessed where they were, did a gap analysis, and we found that the one additional piece of kit was a continuous ventilation system, low running, just extracting out, and that was going to cost just under $2,000 per home. Then the certification fee of $300 or $400 for them. And they train someone up internally so that they can run that process. So rather than this really alarming cost, they can now achieve that. They can be sure they're going to be comfortable, get less moisture in the home. And we see that a lot, a misunderstanding about how challenging it all is. Does that help?
It does, Andrew. And where do people contact you? You said you're there to help, and this exact scenario you just talked through, and that, I mean, it's a wild difference, $2,000 per home versus 38 across a number of houses. It's like such a ginormous gap. So where can people reach out to the Green Building Council?
So we've got the website, nzgbc.org.nz. We've got a whole page on Homestar, just getting started, and we've got really importantly, great case studies. So retirement villages, standard builders, Fletcher Living, Ockham and others, projects throughout Queenstown, the North Island and others, and then some really good, a free to use Homestar design guide. So you can look through that, and that has case studies of the specific tech that you need to step up from the building code. So it says, here is the ventilation system. Here is the other kit. And that shows less than 1% uplift in cost over the building code. So that's our example. And then I'm available, andrew.eagles@nzgbc.org.nz. And my colleague, Matthew Cutler, is really happy to come out and meet and talk through.
That's great, Andrew. We don't get too many CEOs on the podcast offering out their personal email address. So commend you for that. Let's hope the inbox survives the next few hours.
Yeah, that's right.
Andrew, if you could have one group talk more regularly and openly about the Homestar system, and I'm going to say, architectural designers, developers and construction companies, and consumers, where would you like to see the biggest uplift in people talking about this?
The banks.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, they have these offers. And it's really, they're really valuable, right? We just introduced a builder down in Queenstown to a bank, and they didn't know that the bank had this offer. And so they're now talking, and that's material, right? That developer in Christchurch, he learned about it from his bank, and then now he wants to be doing more of those. And I think it's a really great way for those two to be connecting up. And because, money talks, right?
Of course.
And we know it's lower energy bills, but when developers can save considerably, that's really material. Yeah. So, those banks out there in their green business loans talking to developers, and some of them have no limit, so they can lend up to 30, 40, $100 million at that discounted level. That's really effective.
Right. And this is a pure curiosity question. We talked at the top of the podcast about how globally the funds were looking to make sure this happens across the globe. So upstream of the banks, who tend to be borrowing their money, or at least a portion of their money from overseas, do you know, are they also able to access cheaper funds on that basis?
Yeah, they are. So, that's part of the driver, is that the banks, So if you look at sustainable finance, a few years ago, it was just in a few billions of dollars, but it's got this hockey stick and a wider range of lending types. So sustainable linked loans, green bonds, green lending, and that's just scaling. And all of it is led by the large pension funds. So, we had in commercial property, we had a request the other day for a green rating on a building, and we said, what's this driven by? And they said it's driven by the Canadian Public Pension Fund. Mm-hmm. There they are in Canada, and they're investing in, New Zealand buildings, and they need a green rating on that building. So in Australia, massive green uptake, and it's led by the international financial institutions, particularly out of Europe, Canada, now Asia, and all of those drivers. Yep.
Yeah, and understand if we can get those banks who tend to have much larger marketing budgets than many of us, if we can have them talking about the green opportunities. And a couple of items came to mind for me. We've become very familiar with car safety ratings around that, and it's just now it's almost like part of the normal vernacular. If you're investigating your car, you're like, oh, what's the safety rating? And if we can continue to evolve this discussion, it'll just become the standard of when a consumer's looking at buying a property, whether it be brand new or whether it's a house that they're buying that's already been previously owned. The ability, I was thinking about the resale value if you build one of these certified homes. I think they say that on average New Zealanders change their house every 7 years. Yeah. So even if you're buying new, at some point probably in the next decade, you're going to be able to want to sell that house and be able to come back to market and say, hey, we're already Homestar certified. It's going to be, again, a differentiator in the market when you come to resale. So again, like a win.
That's it. I love the vision. Well, across Europe, that is mandatory. So 27 countries, if you go to France, Belgium, Austria, Germany, when you go to sell a home, you need to provide the LIM, but also against the LIM, you need to provide your energy performance certificate, which is what Homestar provides. And it's legally required on both large commercial buildings and any residential sale or leasing out. And we do actually have some councils in New Zealand who are asking and are now putting the Homestar rating, enabling people to put the Homestar rating on the LIM. So Christchurch City Council and other councils are asking that. So, we provide the Homestar certificate through to Totality and or CoreLogic. They've changed and Velocity, and that gets passed on to so that people can put those up on their limbs. Yeah, so I love that vision.
I think that's such a great leap forward for where we're headed. If you were to sort of summarize your vision for the future around what you're working on right now, what ultimately would you like to see achieved?
Well, so most OECD countries, they have energy labels on homes and buildings. And what that does is it provides people transparency. So you or I are going to go and buy a home, and we can see whether it's energy efficient and healthy, whether it's going to cost us a lot of money to run, and that it's transparent, right? And across the OECD, we're one of the only countries without that. All of Germany, France, England, they have that. And I think that's really positive. It rewards those builders who are building at a high standard, and it means those who have old homes, damp, mouldy, are going to have to make that improvement. It's also returned in terms of finance. So we've seen, or house prices, we've seen a 3 to 9% uplift per energy uplift on the scale. So that's across Australia, America, and Europe. So let's reward people who are doing really well so that they can show I'm a 9 or 10 star, or I'm an A-rated property versus this older property. And it rewards people who are building new as well. So we should have an illustration if we're buying for our family. We should have an illustration of how healthy and warm a home is so that we can all see that transparently.
Indeed. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on the Elevate Master Builders podcast today. It's been such a great education for me. And as we kind of discussed during the show, it just feels like there's so many positives here, not only from a feel-good factor of building great homes that are going to be great for people to live in, but there's a real financial benefit to doing it in the it didn't even feel like the long term, like some of those payback periods was so quick for the investment. Thank you for educating us, and encourage anyone out there who's not yet engaged with the Green Building Council, jump on the website, connect, learn, educate yourself, educate your team members, and help keep educating everyone involved. So, Andrew, really appreciate you joining us. It's been a great discussion.
Oh, kia ora, Ryan. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Master Builders and to you. It's been really nice to connect up and onwards. Thanks a lot.
Well played.